Hi, this is Miss Hamilton here. We're doing Unit 7, Lesson 7, Factoring Multi-Step Polynomials. Today, we want to make sure you can factor these polynomials, and the important part is to look for your GCF first. Then you're going to factor either by doing a difference of perfect squares or trinomial factoring. We put this example down here for you, where we pulled out the GCF, which we found was 3. So we put our 3 out here, and then we put everything else over here, and then we just factored it like usual. Okay, so now we're going to look at this trinomial. We're going to look at 4x squared plus 20x plus 24. And I just rewrote it for myself right down here. So my first step, I want to look and say, does this have a GCF? And I see my GCF is 4. So I'm going to take out a 4. I'm going to divide everything by 4. Then I'm going to put it right on the outside. Then I'm going to write down what I have left. I have x squared plus 5x plus 6. So this is what I do, and it says to rewrite this trinomial in an equivalent expression because these two are equivalent. Now it says factor this additional trinomial to express the original in a completely factored form. So I'm just going to rewrite this. I have 4 times x squared plus 5x plus 6. I'm going to look, and I see I got all my GCFs out. Now I have to decide if this is a difference of perfect squares or if we have a trinomial that we can factor. And this is a trinomial, so I'm just going to factor it like I would normally do. I have my 4 out here. I put out my parentheses. I start with my x term. I have a positive, so I'm going to bring that positive down. This positive tells me we have the same signs, so that positive goes there. I'm going to write my terms for 6. We have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. And I know 2 plus 3 gives me 5, which is what we're looking for. So I'm going to put my 3 here because it's bigger, and my 2 comes second. And this is my completely factored form. All right, flip to the next page. We're going to exercise 2. Okay, so we're on exercise number 2 now. We're going to skip part A, and we're going to come back to that later. So we're going to look at part B. Every time we are looking to factor a trinomial, we want to make sure we look for a GCF first. So I notice my GCF here, I have a 3 that I can divide everything by, but I can also divide everything by x. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pull my 3x out. Now I have to write what's left. I have an x squared minus 7x plus 12. Now I have to completely factor this, so I'm going to keep my 3x here. I'm going to write my parentheses down. So I have x and x. My first sign is going to come down. My second sign says these are going to stay the same. And then I'm going to write out my factors of 12. I have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. So I need to look to see which of these I can take where both are negative, so I'm going to add up to get 7. So I'm looking, and 3 plus 4 is 7. So my 4 goes first, and my 3 goes second. So this is a completely factored form of my trinomial. So now I'm going to look at C. My GCF looks like it's 7. So I'm going to pull a 7 out. I'm left with x squared plus 3x minus 10. Now again, I'm going to write my 7 and my 2 sets of parentheses. My x's go first. My first sign is a plus that I'm bringing down. My second sign is going to be the opposite, so it's a minus. My factors of 10 are 1 times 10, 2 times 5. So I have a plus and a minus, so I need a difference of 3. And my 5 and 2 are a difference of 3. So my first is the highest, is 5. My second term is 2. And this is my completely factored form for that trinomial. Now we're going to go on to exercise 3. So now in exercise number 3, we are going to look at questions where we have to take out a GCF, and then we have to do the perfect squares. So let's look at A. We're going to pull out a GCF of 2. So I'm going to take out my 2, and I am left with x squared minus 9. Now if you look at that, we can notice that's a perfect square. So I'm going to write my 2 and my 2 sets of parentheses. So for my perfect square, we have our first term is x, we have a positive and a negative, and the square root of 9 is 3. So I have a 3. And that's factoring with my perfect square. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to take out my GCF of 5 for this one. And I also have x in both that I can take out. So we're going to factor out an x. So we're going to take a 5x. We're left with x squared minus 4. We can see that's a perfect square. So we do our 5x, 2 sets of parentheses. The first term is x. We have a plus and a minus. And then 2 times 2 is 4, so we know our second term is 2. Now pause the video and try part C and D on your own. Alright, you should have gotten 3 times 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1 for part C, and 6 times 3x plus 2 and 3x minus 2 for part D. Now we're going to go on to exercise 5 now. Alright, so now we are on exercise number 5. We're looking at the trinomial 4x squared minus 21x minus 18. And I just rewrote it for myself right there. So my first step in every problem, I look for a GCF. And I look, and my factors of 4 are 2, and I can divide 4 by 4 as well. And I look, and 21 can't be divided by 2 or 4, so I don't have a GCF here. So I'm just going to start with my AC method since a is greater than 1. So I start with my 4x squared up here, my minus 18 way back here, and then I know 4 times 18 is 72, so I need my factors of 72. Alright, so those are my factors of 72, and now I look, and I have to see, I need a difference of 21. So I need to look and see which of these gives me a difference of 21. And I can see that 24 minus 3 gives me 21. So those are my terms. And I look, my first sign is negative, so I have to have a negative 24x. And then my second sign is also negative, so they have to be different signs. So I get a positive 3x. And now I have to group these. I'm going to group the first two together. I get a GCF of 4x, so I'm left with x minus 6. And then I have to group the last two. My GCF is a positive 3, and I'm left with x minus 6 again. And now I look at what I have left. I have a GCF in here. Both of these have an x minus 6 in common, so my x minus 6 is my first term. When I divide both those sides by x minus 6, I am left with 4x plus 3. You can see that from above. We have a 4x and a plus 3 left. So that's my answer, is x minus 6 times 4x plus 3. We're going back right now to the first page. Go to exercise 2, part A. Alright, we are looking at exercise number 2 now, part A. I'm looking at this trinomial, and I know the first thing I have to do is look for a GCF. And I look, and I see my GCF is 5. So I'm going to pull a 5 out. I'm left with 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. And that's why we wanted to go over our AC method before we did this one, because this also involves an AC method. So I'm going to write down my 5 again. 2x squared. My negative 2 goes way over here. I know I have to look for factors of 2 times 2, which equals 4. Factors are 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. So I can look, and I know that I need a difference of 3x, or 3. So when I look at my difference of 3 is 1 and 4. So my first term is going to be positive from this, so I have a positive 4x. My second term is going to be negative, because I need it to be different, so I have a negative 1x. And now I have to group these. First grouping. I write out my 5. Then I need my GCF of the first group, which is 2 and x. 2x is my first GCF. And I'm left with an x plus 2. When I look at my second group, my GCF is going to be a negative 1. And I am left with x plus 2 again. Now I have to look for my GCF again. They both have an x plus 2 in common, so that's going to be pulled out. I write my 5, x plus 2, and I'm left with a 2x minus 1. So that's my completely factored form. We have 5 times x plus 2 times 2x minus 1. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.